Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. You know what it is. Raiders versus the world, talking about the team the world loves to hate, your Las Vegas Raiders. All right, so the first wave of free agency is pretty much done with. I think teams are going to really start hammering down into their draft process right now. So their draft boards, their draft strategies, and all that stuff is really going to be kind of heightened right now. They're going to have all their visits, the pro days, all that stuff's going to be take precedent over anything else right now. So I want to take a quick look at a bunch of different mock drafts to see how the people who are in the know think the Raiders are going to draft. But before we get to that, everyone, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. It's a great way to support. It's absolutely free. It's just us together, grassroots, growing from nothing, and we're doing a great job. I think we're over 1,500 subscribers right now. It really does help if you guys do your part. I'm going to continue doing mine, and it's the absolute bare minimum you can do to support this channel, besides doing absolutely nothing and just watching the video, which I do appreciate. All right, guys, let's get to it. So mock drafts are all over the place, okay? We've heard a lot of different things about who the Raiders are going to take, this guy, that guy. And normally in the beginning, they're going to be kind of all over the place because every team out there has a lot of needs and everyone has their own opinion on how to go about those needs. Well, after the first wave of free agency, which is not only where the most expensive contracts are, but where teams really hunt to get the best players to fill the needs that they have, there's a little bit more clarity. Right now, there's only 3 players that are being mocked from all these different mock drafts to the Raiders. We're going to count the mock drafts, and we're going to take a look at why each individual mock drafter, who are either an insider or a beat writer, chose that specific player for the Raiders. This is kind of along the lines, if you guys have heard me talk about the mock draft in the past, I've said it a few different times now. I want one of the top 3 players in the draft, which for me are Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, or Mason Graham, or a playmaker on offense. Those 2 playmakers, for most people, are Ashton Jeanty from Boise State or Tet McMillan from Arizona. So look, my thinking is get the best player you can, regardless of position, if they're one of the top 3 guys. And I think these top 3 guys are probably better than everyone else on the list by a little bit. After that, go after the area of need that you have with still a player who is very high and the best player at that position. I think if you look at Travis Hunter as a corner first, then maybe a gadget type of receiver, T-Mac is going to be the best receiver available, and he has great measurables and a guy that could come in and perform right away. And Ashton Jeanty, even though there's a very deep group in running back, Ashton Jeanty is, I believe, head and above shoulders everybody else as far as his dynamic ability, his ability to be a rusher and a pass catcher out of the backfield, and just how he can impact an offense. So that's my thinking going into this, okay? So let's take a look and see what these guys have lined up for the Raiders in their mock drafts. All right, first we're going to take a look at The Athletic and Vic Tafur. Vic Tafur is one of my favorite writers, regardless of team or sport or anything. I love Vic Tafur stuff. I think he's very concise. I think he's very direct and to the point. He backs up his stuff, and he's very logical in his thinking, which I think I am a little bit too. So let's take a look at who Vic Tafur has mocked at number 6 for the Raiders. Vic Tafur has Mason Graham, defensive lineman out of Michigan, mocked to go to the Raiders at number 6, and this is what he had to say. Trading for quarterback Geno Smith allowed the Raiders to adopt a strict best player available approach here, and they couldn't lose as they identified 6 Tier 1 studs. It came down to running back Ashton Jeanty or Graham, and the Raiders went with another disruptor up front as they emulate the Eagles' Super Bowl winning approach. Graham has a great first step leverage, violence, and persistent motor that can also hold his own against the run. It would be like having 2 Christian Wilkins side by side, and the Raiders can draft a starting running back in the 2nd or 3rd. My sentiments exactly. My feeling is this. Get the best player you can at 6, and you won't go wrong. It doesn't matter who it is, where they play, if you already have somebody playing the position. You can play Mason Graham and Christian Wilkins side by side. Also, it will allow the Raiders to have a fresher rotation of high-quality defensive linemen. You can never have too many defensive linemen if they're good. If they're good, you can have a bunch of them. You can just keep them fresh, and it will definitely impact your defense right away. I like the way we're starting off here. Mason Graham has 1 tally for mock draft. Okay, guys, up next is Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com. And Daniel Jeremiah has Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State. Let's take a look at what Daniel Jeremiah had to say about the pick. Analysis from Daniel Jeremiah, he says the Raiders can take some pressure off of Geno Smith by adding Genty, who is one of the top 3 players in the draft. I'm not going to argue with Daniel Jeremiah. He feels that Ashton Genty is one of the top 3 players in the draft. Getting one of the top 3 players at 6 in the draft is huge. Okay, I feel that Mason Graham is one of the top 3. Daniel Jeremiah feels that Ashton Genty is. I'm good either way. So I'm liking the way this is going, okay? And let's keep moving. All right, now we're going to ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr. and see what he has to say about his mock draft and who the Raiders are going to take at number 6. Okay, Mel Kiper Jr. from ESPN has Ashton Genty from Boise State going to the Raiders at number 6. And let's see what Mel Kiper Jr. has to say. His analysis is elusiveness, speed, physicality, vision with the ball in his hands. Genty really has it all. Rushing for 2,601 yards and 29 touchdowns last season. Plus, he has some pass catching upside with 66 catches over the past 2 campaigns. The Raiders were last in rushing last season, averaging 3.6 yards per carry and 79.8 per game. Genty would change everything there and create a solid offensive nucleus with Smith, Jacoby Myers, and Brock Bowers. Can't really argue with that. I would like to have another interior offensive lineman to kind of compete and make these guys a little bit more stout up front. It wasn't all the running backs last season. The offensive line was also getting beat quite a bit as well. I would like a little bit more of an upgrade there, but you can't argue with the positives of Ashton Genty, and that's what Mel Kiper thinks we're going to go, okay? Let's see what else we got. All right, guys, up next is Mike Renner from CBS Sports, and he has Ashton Genty, running back from Boise State, and he says, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, Pete Carroll isn't going to stop prioritizing the running back position just because he took a year away from the NFL. Ashton Genty, the best running back prospect since at least Bijan Robinson, immediately gives the Raiders a formidable rushing attack. I think he's better than Bijan Robinson. I think Genty is probably the best running back prospect since like Saquon Barkley. I look at him play and I think I see like a mini LaDainian Tomlinson, which is hard to pass up at 6. Okay, up next is Joel Klatt from Fox Sports, and he has Mason Graham, defensive lineman from Michigan. This is what Joel Klatt has to say. Adding Graham would bolster an already strong defensive line, putting him with Maxx Crosby and Christian Wilkins, parentheses, and Malcolm Koonce. That might be the most disruptive defensive line in football with Graham, and you need that to beat Mahomes. I agree. There is not one team that you would not be better against having a dominant defensive line. Every single team in the league out there, you can beat up and you can be better against having a much better defensive line. I don't see any problem going from good to great. Right now, we have a really good defensive line. I think they're really good with if you have Adam Butler in there, whoever you have in there instead. But you put Mason Graham in there with Koonce, with Wilkins, and with Maxx Crosby. I'm telling you, that's going to be a great defensive line. There's nothing wrong with being great. And there's nothing wrong with making a good part of your team much better with this. And again, it's going to travel well, and it's going to go against every team well that you play. So I like the thinking there. All right, up next is Kyle Stackpole from CBS Sports, and he has Ashton Genty, running back from Boise State. So we got Mason Graham with 2, Ashton Genty with 4. And this is what Kyle has to say. The Raiders have their new quarterback in Geno Smith, and now they have perhaps the most dynamic offensive player in the class in Ashton Genty. I am not arguing with that. I do believe he's the most dynamic offensive player. If you want to say Travis Hunter, okay, I understand that, but he's not going to play the amount of snaps on offense that Ashton Genty will. I think Ashton Genty is going to be an excellent player wherever he goes. If he ends up on the Raiders, I'll be super pumped. Okay, up next is John Kosko from Pro Football Focus, and he has the Raiders at number 6, taking a new name, T-Mac, Ted McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. And he has to say this: the Raiders desperately need a top-tier wide receiver, and McMillan provides that. Quarterback Geno Smith thrived in Seattle with DK Metcalf, a big-bodied athletic wideout, and McMillan is cut from the same cloth with a more refined route-running skill set. Las Vegas' offense has some talent, especially after drafting tight end Brock Bowers a year ago, and McMillan could create more open looks for Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Can't argue with that. What I said in the very beginning, take one of the best 3 players out there if they're available. If not, grab the most explosive offensive player you can find. It all depends on where you think these players are going to be the most productive and how they're going to fit on the team. If you feel that Ashton Genty in the run game is going to be the best avenue, grab him. If you feel you need to get a better pass catcher out there for Geno Smith to throw the ball, then you get T-Mac. Either way, I'm good with it. So right now we have Mason Graham with 2, Ashton Jeanty with 4, and T-Mac with 1. Up next is Kyle Krabs from the 33rd team, and he has tackle from Missouri, Armand Membu. Let's see what Kyle has to say about the pick. An offensive line of Colton Miller, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Dylan Parham, and Armand Membu has the potential in time to be one of the league's best if they keep this group together. You can't argue with that. I think Armand Membu is an excellent player. I think that you have to find a place for DJ Glaze in this offensive line. I think if you can move Dylan Parham to left guard, I think he's a better left guard. You can maybe slide DJ Glaze over to guard because he has played guard in his career at Maryland. So it can work. The thing that I'm most concerned with here is the impact to the offensive line. Is it greater getting Membu into that offensive line, or is the impact to the running back class greater by putting Jeanty on the running back class, or is the impact to the wide receiving core, not tight ends or wide receivers, just wide receiving core, is the impact to the wide receiving core more by putting T-Mac on the wide receiving core? I feel you should get the player that will make the most impact with a top 10 pick. And I don't know, as good as Membu is and as good as his measurables are, I don't know that he moves the needle that much. I don't know that he's that much better than DJ Glaze played last season for that offensive line group as, let's say, a Jeanty for the running back class would be, or a T-Mac would be for the wide receiver class. Either way, I wouldn't be mad at the pick. I know it's not sexy to get an offensive lineman, but when you have these measurables, I mean, man, it's hard to pass up. Okay, up next is James Foster from the 33rd team, and he has Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State. So now we have Mason Graham, I believe, has 2. Ashton Jeanty has 5. T-Mac has 1. And Membu has 1. So it looks like Ashton Jeanty is really running away with this. Let's see what James Foster has to say. The Raiders secured their quarterback of the near future, trading a 3rd-round pick for Geno Smith. And they add more offensive firepower with Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty is a complete 3-down back who's a chore to bring down. Can't argue with it, man. This guy's good. He's really good. And he can definitely change an offense. All you have to do is make sure to put him in a position to succeed. I think Chip Kelly can do that. All right, guys, so there you have it, okay? Those are the picks that we have from the mocks around the people in the know. You got the mock drafters, you got the insiders, and you have the beat writers here. The final standings are Mason Graham with 2, Ashton Jeanty with 5 mocks, Tet McMillan with 1, and Armand Membu with 1. These are the kind of, I mean, except for the Membu pick, unless you think Membu is one of the top 3 players in the draft, I personally don't think so. But it goes along the lines of what I've been saying for quite some time. You get one of the best players in the draft, the top 3 guys you can. You get one of those guys if they fall. If not, get the most impactful, explosive player that you can to help your offense, because your offense is pretty behind your defense. So I think this kind of falls in line with that, and I think this is kind of in line with how the Raiders are thinking going into this draft process. I don't know that they can really sign anyone in the free agent class right now that will kind of move them off of taking one of these guys in the draft. So I think we're pretty locked in to a Mason Graham, Ashton Jeanty, T-Mac type. It could totally change. Who knows? I can be completely off, but that's where I feel things are going right now for the Raiders in the draft. All right, guys, that's my time. I appreciate you guys very much. Make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to this video. It's a great way for you to support this channel. It's absolutely free, and it's the bare minimum you can do to support this channel besides doing absolutely nothing and just watching the video. If you've watched this far, you might as well subscribe. I got a lot more stuff coming. I post every single day. Hope you guys liked it. Until next time, everybody, peace. Hey, Raider Nation. Thanks for watching. There's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and smash that like button. Drop a comment. Make sure to subscribe and share to all your socials. It's the bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely nothing.